Hi guys, Howzit? Welcome trek allemaal. Howzit Texas? Welcome back. We are 1 week away from Springboks versus Ireland, and you know me, been trying to get guests on here. We had Bradley Gibson last week to talk about the Welsh game, and this week I have a special guest. His name is Sean Ryan. You can find him at Sean Ryan Radio on TikTok. And he's a bit of an interesting character. Not only is he is Irish and currently calling the Great White North Canada home. But I found him on TikTok. He's really hilarious, and he will be known for content such
I just posted this video on the Munster fans forum. This is their response. Clearly, they don't understand the generational talent.
Said I don't know if I've ever been good enough. I'm a little bit rusty, and I think my head is caving in.
So if you found that funny, ladies and gentlemen, here is the gentleman behind that video. Sean, welcome, man. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
So obviously, we know what we're here for. We know what's to be discussed. Everybody can see your jersey. Everybody can see mine.
Yep.
We've got a battle ahead in 1 week from right now. And how are you as an Irish fan? How are you feeling? What's the vibe, man? What's the vibe?
I'm kind of unsure. I'll be honest with you. Like, I mean, you know, we're against the world champions at the end of the day. Like, and it's going to be a tough game. I mean, we did win against you in the group stage or whatever. But like, I mean, that's all ancient history now. That's the past. These games are going to be quite important. You know, if you were telling me like who do I think want to win, I think it's a clear enough answer. But I think the way things are going to go down, like there's a lot of people missing, especially like Hugo Keenan for Ireland and Gibson Park as well as missing, and they're kind of two key players. So I'm a little bit less confident than I was a couple of weeks back thinking about it. But yeah, that's the way I'm kind of feeling about it. I'd be like hopeful for two wins for sure, but I think it will be 1-1. I just feel like it's going to be 1-1. Like whoever like wins that first game, I feel is going to have so much confidence thinking, well, because our teams have such big egos. That's the way it is. And you know, whichever team gets that first win is going to be super confident going into that second one and might be just undermined. And I feel like that's the way it's going to kind of play out in a general kind of synopsis of it.
So we talk about injuries. Obviously, we will be without, looks like Damien Valemza will not be available. I don't think Kanan Moody is going to be available. We have injury bugs just like you.
Yeah.
We do know that Gibson Park, I believe is it a hamstring or a knee injury that's keeping him
something with the leg anyway. Yeah.
What about Hugo Keenan? Is he being kept out to prepare for the Olympics, or is he actually injured?
He's in the sevens for the Olympics, from what my understanding is. Yeah.
So he's taken a step back to try and possibly win a medal for the nation of Ireland in the upcoming Olympics next year in Paris, France. We kind of go back. We go back to this team. The last 4 or 5, I'd say when Joe Schmidt became head coach of the team, it was obviously a turning point in the team's history. This is a team that if you look on paper and you look at history was not kind to the Irish for a good 100 years as far as rugby went. And now in the last decade or so, you've really started kind of begin turning the tide. You've gotten racked up. You had a really impressive win streak going into the World Cup. And then it gets down to the quarterfinal, and it just doesn't happen for you. I could tell a lot of the guys were crushed. I think the most crushed man on that squad was your captain.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
Johnny Sexton was crushed. That is not how he wanted to end his career.
Yeah, he did really want to end on a high. Like, I mean, being his last game and whatnot, and just, you know, it's what an influential player to that Ireland squad. Like, I mean, he's brought the team to leaps and bounds. And it's trying to kind of build that spot as well. I mean, he was so key to that squad that, like, you know, Jack Crowley now is trying to fill the boots. I think he can fill the boots. He's going to be a bit different to what Sexton was, but you know, just the experience that man had and just like his temper and everything like that. Like, it was a good all over player for a 10. Like,
it kind of reminds me, we were in the same pool as Scotland. And it seemed the key to Scotland was Finn Russell. They filtered everything through him. So when both of our teams played them, we went after Finn Russell. And when we went after him, the whole game plan broke down. Now, the difference that I saw in Ireland is you could attack Johnny Sexton all day, and they'll change up. If they don't see it getting any movement in the midfield, they'll go to the forward pack. They'll go to the backs. Yeah. And that's, to me, what made Ireland such a good team, was that they could adapt and overcome regardless of who the opponent was. I think it got to a point, I guess, in that quarterfinal, you just came up under a team that was just, I wouldn't even say they were hitting peak at the time, but they just were just a little bit more experienced. They kind of knew going forward what it would take. With that being said, you do have the benefit of being in the Northern Hemisphere. The Springboks have played one game this year. You have played six now? Five, six now? Five? Yeah, 5 games.
5, and then today's game is 6, I think.
And this next week game will be 6. You've already kind of having a chance. You did win the Six Nations. Unfortunately, you did lose to England, so you didn't complete the Grand Slam.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me.
and I mean, like, look, this was my first year actively watching the Six Nations. I've never watched it. Like, it was never my thing. I'm a Southern Hemisphere guy. That's what I watch. And it was very interesting to kind of see some of the key matchups, the marquee names and things like that. And then it was cool to see guys that I didn't even know. I was never a big Irish. I was a big Irish rugby fan when Brian O'Driscoll and Rory Best were there. That's the era that I remember, because when I make greatest 15s of all time, if I don't have Brian O'Driscoll on it, he's on the bench. He is, to me, one of the greatest centers to ever play this game. And it's interesting, the era they came from, they were great players, the team not so much. Now we're having the team is great as well as these great players on the team. So obviously your 1-1 is what your prediction is. Do you think that Loftus game is the game that's going to be the most difficult, or do you think Durban will be more difficult?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, even if you go back to club rugby and you go to, like, Munster, and when Ireland teams were coming down, and obviously the debate goes on about altitude and stuff like that. Loftus is a hard place to win at. Obviously, Munster got it done, and as we saw last weekend, Glasgow got it done.
Definitely got it done. Jesus Christ, that was bad.
So it's not impossible to win in altitude. It is just adapting to the weather and stuff like that. And I think while they're down there a week ahead, this is what they're going to be focused on, is just overcoming that small bit of a hurdle and then focus on the game plan. But as I said, I feel like it's going to go 1-1 regardless of what way it goes.
So I'm just like every other Springbok fan. I do bring up the lack of success at World Cup time.
Yeah.
Quarterfinalists all the time. What is it that you think? Where would you like to see improvement between now and 2027 that you think will definitely get you over that hump? What is it that you think lacks, or do you just think it was an unlucky bounce of the ball, unlucky matchup in 2023? What do you think it's going to take for Ireland to make that next step?
So go past the quarterfinals is basically what you're asking me.
Yeah.
I think obviously you need a bit of a luck from the Irish. That's the first thing. But I genuinely think, like, some of it comes down to peaking. I think sometimes we just peak too early. And even in the World Cup, I felt like we peaked when we played South Africa. We got to the quarterfinals, and then we had, like, New Zealand to play, who were kind of like, they weren't at their peak. They had lost that first game, but they were coming back up. They were on the upcline. Whereas when you're at the top, it's very easy to fall off, is the way I would have said it. And we've always been that way. We've always, like, we were a very good nation for, like, having huge belief in the team to do it, even though the odds of us getting quarterfinals is, is the way it is.
It's not in your favor, at least at this point.
And that's kind of one of the things they need to focus on. We have the players, we have the support. I mean, the structure in Ireland for rugby from club level all the ways up is quite impressive on a global scale. So, like, it's just I think it's just small issues, but they make a big difference for those key games, especially as we saw in the World Cup.
when it comes to selection, obviously, guys that are eligible for Ireland, Ireland is becoming, it used to be a normal thing. You used to have all your players playing domestically. Now there's a lot of nations that have opened it up. Obviously, South Africa, Argentina, Australia, Italy. A lot of these guys have started to open that up. England is obviously still closed to it. I think Wales has a weird rule. I think it's 25 or 30 caps before you can play abroad. Now, there's been a really big push recently, New Zealand ending that policy due to they're not able to keep their players because they can get paid better to go to Japan or wherever. Do you think that needs to change to help Irish rugby, or do you prefer that they keep all their players domestically?
I think it makes it very competitive. Like when you look at even for the 4 provinces, it's a quite strong group as the way it is, and it is good that they're able to play. We do have some slight rules that I'm not 100% sure. Like we had, like, Sexton didn't play for any of the Irish clubs. He played for Racing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And he was still playing international. I think there was some issue with Simon Zebo at one point. I'm not, like, my memory isn't too great when it go that far back when he was, like, playing for Ireland. But there was some rule that he was able to play, but he wasn't able to play. So I don't know. But what it would do if it was able to kind of be a bit more freer in that sense, it would definitely kind of get people, or like players, to kind of experience working with, South African players or the New Zealand squad. And like, these are the teams that you want to beat, especially at World Cup time. And even just having those little pieces just picked up from either of the players, will make that difference. I feel like it will just kind of give a bit more flavor to the Irish squad. But we are very creative in our own right. As you kind of know yourself, like we have players that play for the Ireland team, but were born in New Zealand or Australia, which always comes up in a debate when I see it on TikTok.
I've really made a push that I've not brought any of that up in the lead up. I have in the past. The lead up to these matches, I'm not bringing any of that up because I just think it's a tired argument.
Yeah, for sure. But it's always like, that's the experience that we kind of get. Like you can deny that, like, but they're Irish. They're playing for Ireland. They're Irish. They do get that experience from playing from, like, you go to James Lowe or you go Gibson Park. That experience does build onto them, and that is a part of them. So it's good. And they play for Ireland. They are, they are Irish in that sense, but they've gained that experience from very high
playing elsewhere,
countries,
growing up elsewhere. I think also something else I wanted to bring up, we've talked about the international side of it. For me, having grown up as a Super Rugby guy, obviously being a South African fan, living in all 3 of the 4 Super Rugby nations at one point, when Super Rugby began to dissolve, we joined what at that time was called like the Pro 14, I think at the time? Top 14, something like that. Yeah, and then it became the Rainbow Cup for a year, and then it became the URC. At first, I was not a fan of it. I didn't like playing the European teams, but now, who cares about Super Rugby? Give me URC. I think it is the most competitive competition in all of professional rugby, just because you have so many teams from so many places, so many styles, so many coaches, so many just everything. And it also gives the opportunity for those boys in South Africa that want to go play in Ireland for a good check.
Yeah.
To still be able to play against South African teams. I feel like it's helped Ireland. I feel like it's helped everyone has benefited from what URC is now. I feel like everyone is benefiting from it. And it's 100%. Also, what is your Irish club side?
Like when we're talking, like, well, obviously Munster is the team.
Okay, that's what I'm bringing up.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going more.
Yeah. No. At the URC level, I have to bring this up. I don't know if you've ever been to New Zealand.
No.
Have you ever? Okay. So in New Zealand, nobody likes Auckland.
Yeah.
They call them Jaffas. They're just not a fan. And I'm beginning to kind of see the same sentiment for Leinster. Like, unless you're a Leinster fan, you hate Leinster. And it seems like a lot of the Irish teams kind of have that same. Is it because you feel like Leinster gets a boot up on everyone, or is it just kind of more of a provincial rivalry kind of thing?
I think it goes a lot deeper than that, to be honest with you. It goes from like, obviously they have a lot more money. They've got better infrastructure in terms of the whole scale. But you talk like, let's talk about La Rochelle, Ronan O'Gara, one of the greatest Munster players of all time, in my opinion. Even when they played in the Aviva that last game, and obviously La Rochelle lost, like, it's the disrespect even to Ronan O'Gara. Every time he came on the screen, it was, we're not cheering for him. It's been deep. Like, I mean, just even battles between each other at very high level games, it's always been very competitive. Like, and it runs deep, especially between Munster and Leinster. I mean, if you're talking about biggest rivals in Europe in terms of rugby, it has to be one of them. Like,
to be fair, I cheered for Munster for only one reason and one reason alone, and that is because of your lock, the Viking himself, Arhisnan. And of course, I'm gonna back that dude no matter what. So that being said, I think another quick question. We'll touch on a few more things. We'll be done here. Next thing how do you watch the games in Canada?
I use some streaming site that uses it. Like, I think it's called rugbystreams.com or something like that. I can't remember the exact.
The legitimate way, if you had to watch it in Canada, what is the legitimate way in Canada?
TSN, I think. I'm not even too sure.
TSN. So here we use Flow Sports. That's the legitimate way. And I've told everybody around the world, I jailbreak a Fire Stick. I think it's kind of for countries that are trying to grow the sport, they're doing a horrible job as far as showing the games. That's just in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like it's even I watched the US versus Canada, the under-20s. That was a couple of weeks back. I was able to get it on Rugby Pass, which is great. If you have Rugby Pass on the app, it's great to see all these like amateur enough games and kind of
weird.
So like that's a great outlet for it. But like even just trying to like, if you were going to a pub or like if you were going out, like you're not going to be able to see the games because one, in Canada, I think it's like the 7th highest in like popularity of sports. Like, but you are competing against hockey, baseball, basketball in that, and then you have soccer on top of it.
Lacrosse. God.
Yeah, lacrosse. I forgot about them.
Yeah.
So like there's so much
the national sport.
Yeah, exactly. People forget that. People think it's hockey, but it's not.
It's lacrosse.
But yeah, it's a big hill to climb in terms of like that for Canada, especially. And I think that's why it's harder. And then when sites are charging for it as well, it just makes it like I don't want to be watching it for like the non-regular viewer.
Yeah. I do agree. Like if you go to a pub here, unless you go to like what the Americans think is an English pub, you're hard pressed to find rugby. I've gone into sports bars here and said, "Hey, can you put on the rugby match?" And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know they showed that here." And it's like, you still get it. And I got it in Canada a lot too. Oh, we have a rugby team? Like, I didn't know we even played that. And it's like, yeah, you made a quarterfinal in a World Cup way back in 1991, but you do have a rugby team.
Yeah.
You also, and for those of you who follow him on TikTok, Sean is covering provincial rugby in Ontario. And I really have to tip my hat to you, good sir, because you're the only person I know that covers that.
It's actually been quite fun. In the background here, a few of the jerseys and stuff like that I get from the club.
Wow, dude, right on. Which club is that?
That's Barry. This is the closest one to me at the moment.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I have like jerseys from all the clubs, which is kind of sick.
Did you ever make it to an Arrows game?
I'll tell you a funny story about this. So I was living in downtown Toronto. I was keeping track of it. Obviously, it's a massive adjustment when you're from Ireland and moving to a city like Toronto. If people know where I'm from, like Cork is the equivalent of about 200,000, maybe that kind of way. But like, it's really
that small. It's that small.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the second big. That's kind of like where it lies. Maybe it's closer it might be 500,000. I don't really know. It's just really like Cork is a massive county in itself, so that there's a lot of farmlands and stuff like that, and then the city itself. So the figure I'm not 100% sure, but it's quite small. in comparison to Toronto. When I landed in Toronto, it was a big culture shock.
Toronto's like New York, ladies and gentlemen. Toronto is like comparable to New York. It is massive.
100%. And even the style of everything, like, is, the amount of movies that are shot there will just be enough to tell you that
it'll say New York, but it's actually Toronto, Canada.
Yeah. Like, Suits is like a popular one that people reference for, that all those scenes were in Toronto.
Oh, but, okay.
Yeah. But what was I saying?
We were talking about, have you gone to Toronto Arrows games?
Oh yeah, sorry. So it was on the bucket list. I was going to go to a game, but I'm gonna use that line from Good Will Hunting. I had to see a girl. And
I see about a girl, eh?
I had to see a girl. I'm living with her now, so I think I picked the right choice. But I was going to see one this year. I was like, okay. Before I moved up to Midland, I was still in Toronto for the start of the year, and then
the team folded. The
team folded, and it's a bit of a weird scenario because people are like, the academy team is still there, so that's still in the works, but the main team isn't there. So are they going to try and do it like, ask to get into the league again? Well, I don't know. I don't know what the story is. Nobody kind of knows what way it's going to go.
I do know what happened to the team. The original owner passed away.
Yeah.
And he was the financier of it, and they couldn't find anybody else to finance it. And it was becoming also an issue. This year, Dallas has 3 Canadian internationals, 2 of which played for Toronto. They're playing here in Dallas now.
Yeah.
And they told me the other issue was because, we got inflation in America. I think it got up to like 8% at one point. And like, I think in Canada, it was at like 18 or 19% at one point. Yeah. And the pay just wasn't enough. Guys were going there and were like, I don't even make enough to feed myself. And you talk about the game of hockey. I grew up playing that, obviously, myself. It's why I think Canada hasn't won another Stanley Cup, because they just can't compete with the buying power south of the border. It's just the money just goes so much further here. With that being said, obviously, like I said, you cover that. I know you would probably love to go to a Major League Rugby game at some point. I'm sure
it'll be on the bucket list, yeah.
But with that being said, we do have an international series starting here shortly with the nations we both now call home.
We do.
I've dubbed it the Capital Cities Tour because they will be hitting up Ottawa. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Toronto is not the capital of Canada. It will be hitting up DC. Then they will head south of the equator and head up Santiago de Chile and Montevideo, Uruguay. And that is Scotland. Scotland is coming on tour. I mean, what kind of luck did they get? France got Argentina. You guys got us.
Yeah.
England got New Zealand, and Wales got Australia.
Yeah.
Who did Italy is playing Samoa, I think. I think they're doing like Samoa and Fiji and Tonga.
Maybe? I think, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you could be wrong on that, but yeah, I think you're right.
How do you feel? Like, so here's the real question.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last time the USA played Scotland, they did beat them, but this was a team that was predominantly overseas based. Now it's predominantly domestically based, and neither team qualified for the 2023 World Cup, rightfully so. Which team do you think gets beat worse, Canada or the United States?
Just so, like, since I've been covering the club level and stuff, and I'm gonna be talking to people, and like, my whole agenda with the club level is to, hopefully get that Canada team built up and kind of understanding it, put more light on it, maybe even get more finance, like in the long term.
Finance, yeah, that's the big thing.
That's the big one. So it's about, making drama and making, kind of making the scene bigger than just making it bigger. I think from what I've heard, people are like, when I say, oh, do you think you'll be ready for the next World Cup? Is the kind of the agenda that most people go off for any rugby club. And most people are saying, nah, we're not going to get to the World Cup. Even though there's going to be more teams, they're not going to get it. So I genuinely think Canada is going to get worsely destroyed. I genuinely feel that that's what's going to happen, especially with the decline in rugby at the moment here. As you said, like the arrows folding, I think that's the way it's going to go. But I'm still gonna go for the boys in red. Like, do you know what I mean? When I get up to the game, next weekend, and I'm meeting a few of the players after the game to sign my rugby ball, so that'll be kind of sick. But I think that Scottish team as well is just really equipped, even though they don't have Finn Russell on it either.
I was expecting them to bring like a much lesser squad on the tour, and no, they outside of Finn Russell, they pretty much are bringing all their big guns. It's not a B squad by any outside, unless you count Finn Russell as the only way they have an A squad. It's not. It is. Gregor Townsend is not playing games. He wants to win all 4 of these. And he's gonna test out new guys. He's gonna do what you do on a tour like this. Do you know where the game is being played at in Ottawa?
It's in the TD Gardens. No, not the TD Gardens. TD sponsor it, but I can't think of the name of the stadium. It's where they play the hockey. It's like that field there. That's my understanding, unless I'm wrong.
Okay. Obviously it'll be carried. We can watch it domestically by whatever means we want.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping, obviously, being from the Great White North, living in America, having Canadian rugby players around. Dewey Kutsia, he's from Edmonton, is originally born in South Africa, but moved to Edmonton when he was, I think, in grade 9 or grade 10 of school.
Yeah.
He got called up finally. He's he was the leading try scorer in MLR this year. He had 5 tries in 1 game and a loss to Seattle back earlier in the season. Yeah. He's obviously a man that sits at home and watches Malcolm Marks videos all the time because they were all off the line out. With that being said, I do feel like Canadian rugby, it's trying, but you're right. Without funding, without support, it's never going to get up to the levels, because usually USA and Canada games used to be extremely competitive, and they can still be at times, but not so much in recent memory.
No.
Are you guys getting to play Romania as well? Because
so we play Romania the week after. I won't be at that game, but that should be a game that will be a bit more like their speed. I don't know what way it's going to flow, but I know this first game is not going to go to Canada anyway.
So we're playing Romania. You guys are playing Scotland, and then we flip-flop. You play Romania, we play Scotland, and then we get prepared for this Pacific Nations tournament, I think is what it's called, where we get to play Japan. We both play each other. We play Japan. Yeah. I don't know if you'd heard the rumor. There was a rumor for a bit that Eddie Jones was going to come to America. I know you're fairly new to the continent. Let me tell you some other really funny rumors here. Warren Gatland was also rumored at one point. I know for a fact Mario Ledesma interviewed for the job. No. Like I did an interview with Mario. He was one of the assistant coaches with Dallas for a bit. Obviously, nothing but respect for him. I love Argentinian rugby. I loved it because they're kind of like the little engine that could, And I still think, I'm glad we didn't get Eddie. I think Eddie is hilarious in front of a microphone. I think he does not need to be coaching rugby at all. He just needs to do a podcast and just run and it would be hilarious. But that was we dodged a bullet there. We dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah, 100%. Like even the way he was hyping up that Japan team against England was just ludicrous.
And they got did you see what happened last night too?
No, I missed it.
They got dismantled by the Māori All Blacks. They got absolutely dismantled by the Māori All Blacks.
Yeah.
His peak was England. He was in a rubbish bin fire in Australia, and it looks like he's kept that trajectory going with Japan. I feel sorry because Japan is a growing team. You kind of talk about they're the newest tier 1 team, but yeah, dude, they got absolutely just dismantled by the Māori All Blacks last night. It was bad.
They are going backwards, and I think Eddie Jones is just he shouldn't be coaching at this stage. He has had his run.
He's got a bottle of whiskey in one hand and the train whistle in the other. It's just Yeah, I love Eddie, but God, you need to stop, bud. You need to stop. Just retire, man. Go be a consultant, dude. Like it's just. But I have to thank you for coming on. Obviously, next week we got the big game, 10 a.m. my time, 11 a.m. your time.
Yep.
And let's just go ahead and do it. What's the score prediction from Sean in game one?
In game one. Sorry, which stadium are they playing in first?
Loftus.
They're in Loftus.
Pretoria. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be like the way it was in the World Cup in terms of like really small digits, but I'm going to go 19-17 to Ireland. That kind of way, just a 3-point difference. It's going to be tight. There is going to be opportunities, but I just feel like it could be the other way around. That's the way I feel.
I've gone with 23-16 Springboks. I think you're right. If you look outside of the very first game that Rassie coached against Ireland when you dismantled us 35-3, every game outside of that has been very, very close. Yeah. And I think this trend will continue in game one of this series. It's an honest 19-17 is not an unrealistic scoreline. People might say, no, it's not. These teams, when they play each other, the defense is tight on both sides. You're not going to get like the way you beat Scotland or Wales is not the way you beat South Africa. You have to adapt. And I think as much as I don't like his son, I think Faz is a great coach. I think he's the right coach for Ireland right now. And I think you talk about wanting to make that next step. I think he's key to that.
Yeah, 100%.
I think you have, honestly, if you were to put like the top level coaches in the world, he's definitely one of the ones that I'd put up there. Like, no question. Yeah. Farrell is the real deal. And he's also young enough to where he's still kind of intimidating.
Yeah, he does have a presence, all right. Like
he has that scowl. He gets a scowl on his face, and you can tell when he is not happy.
Yeah.
And so good luck to Ireland next week. Good luck to the Springboks. And follow this guy on TikTok. He is absolutely hilarious. I'm still a bit bummed that you got left off the Canadian squad. I mean,
disgusted because I know I said that Canada was going to lose, but I think at the minute I was on, like, you know, that changes the figures. Like,
Canada Rugby, that's a red card for you, sir. Leaving Sean off the squad. You need to go to the disciplinary board. You're being left out with such great talent, but I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks.
No, absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.